going to jump right in. The topic of tonight's webinar is how to make good financial decisions in a time of uncertainty, actually of insanity. Before we go too far, I'm going to just do a quick update on the indicators that we follow. This is what we call the Heron Wealth green light, red light macro model. Not too much has changed since a month ago. Economic reports are still pretty dire. Yes, unemployment has gotten better, but still 20 million Americans unemployed. Unemployment benefits are running out. People will start getting evicted shortly. Landlords are in a terrible state because there's something like $75 billion of unpaid rent right now, so that's not cool. Commodity prices are flat to falling, signaling that the economy is going to be weak for a while forward. Federal Reserve policy, very accommodative, 0% interest rates, but the Fed has no place else to go. Technical factors, we saw the markets make record highs about 10 days ago, sold off 5 or 10% since then. Yep, that's kind of what we would expect. It's almost like when you have a rocket, the most rapid increase is right before the fuel cuts out. And I feel like the fuel cut out about 10 days ago. We'll see. Bond market, very low interest rates right now. That supports the stock market. But overall, we are still very bearish about the stock market. We are not doing anything to invest money until probably January, unless the market fell 20%, which is a good possibility, and then we would move forward and invest money. So let's go a little further forward and talk about today's agenda. Today's agenda is going to be kind of fun. We're going to talk about the evolution of lying. What? How does that apply to investing? We'll talk about that. Managing our emotional state. We've been in this pandemic mode for 6 months now. And I don't know about you, but I'm starting to get a little weary. And here's the bad news. It's going to be like this for another 12 months. There is no quick fix. There is no vaccine coming. There is no magical cure coming. It's going to be like this for another 12 months. How can we take back control of our emotions while we wait for the vaccine, while we wait for the herd immunity, while we wait for the cures? And then we'll take some questions at the end. If you have a question, use the Q&A function or the chat function. Rafi will collect those and read those off to me at the end of this presentation. Let's go with some ancient history first.
David, are you able to get the sound working on that?
Okay, sound not coming through?
Sound not coming through.
Okay, so I'm getting some information that the sound is not coming through. That was Bill Clinton's famous press conference where he declared, "I did not have sexual relationships with that woman." And you can see there's Al Gore and Hillary Clinton following him out. Great applause, problem solved, right? Well, it wasn't. He was impeached. And the charges were very specific. One was perjury in grand jury testimony, talking about Monica Lewinsky. And the other was obstruction of justice, trying to apply pressure against witnesses to not testify against him. And he was acquitted in February 1999, but he was a lame duck president for the remaining 20 months of his second term. Nobody would take him seriously. And because the Democratic leadership was discredited, it contributed to Vice President Al Gore losing his presidential bid in 2000, which normally would have been a slam dunk, considering that the 8 years of the Clinton administration was actually pretty positive for most Americans. So in that context, lying had consequences. I'm going to scroll forward to the present day. I'm not quite sure why we're not getting the audio. So I will start playing it, and Rafi, tell me if it comes through, and if it doesn't.
Not working.
Not working. Let's pause this for a second. But I'll tell you what the gist of it was. That was an interview that Donald Trump did a few weeks ago with Laura Ingraham. And in that interview, Trump expressed, he told a story that he had heard from somebody that a bunch of guys they were they were thugs in black uniforms carrying weapons and gear had boarded a plane. They were flying from one city to the other, and they were looking to cause trouble. And that was a lie. And how do we know it was a lie? Well, first off, when was the last time TSA let a bottle of water onto a plane, let alone heavily armed thugs dressed in black uniforms? Number two, our phones record everything these days. Where's the video of the black thugs? We got everything else on video these days. Number three, even Laura Ingraham is having a hard time swallowing this lie. Throughout the interview, she's trying to guide him back to some semblance of reality, and she wasn't successful. Trump lies compulsively about everything, large and small, over 20,000 times since inauguration. Unfortunately, Trump's lies permeate and degrade everyone who works in the White House, but there are no consequences for it. I won't play this interview because we're having trouble with the sound, but this is William Barr a couple days later talking to Wolf Blitzer about voting. And Wolf Blitzer is being very challenging, and at a certain point asks William Barr, the president has told people in North Carolina to vote by absentee and then go vote in person. Well, that's illegal. And William Barr says, I'm not sure it's illegal. And that was a lie. First off, we can, if you look at the body language of William Barr in this interview, he's scrunched way back. He's laughing nervously. He's having a hard time keeping a straight face, while he tries to pull up with his lie. But more importantly, he's been involved with the Justice Department since 1989, when he was first the Deputy Attorney General for George Herbert Walker Bush, and then later the Attorney General. So he's been involved with political laws for 40 years. And it's not believable that he does not know it's illegal to vote twice. But anyway, so we'll skip over that. Body language, his career. Later in the same interview, Barr claimed that 1,700 illegal votes were cast in a Texas election. This claim was false. However, the damage is done. Fact checks never catch up with lies. So again, we're in a time and a place where lying has no consequences. And as investors, why do we care? Here's the thing. 50,000 years ago, when we were all cavemen and cavewomen, threats were easy to understand. If you were a cave person, every day you thought about weather, volcanoes, enemy tribes, tigers, snakes. Life was very straightforward and simple. And when you had a threat, it was generally right in front of you. Tiger, for example, you could see that threat, process it, react to it, deal with it, either get eaten or survive and move on to the next day. Well, these days, threats are everywhere, but far less tangible. For example, just right now, everyone is worried about the pandemic. Will I get sick? Medical progress. Can I be cured if I get sick? Or is there a vaccine coming? The short-term economics. How much unemployment will there be? Will I lose my job? Yeah, that's a reality for a number of our clients in the last couple of months. It was interesting. In the initial shock, the initial wave, March, April, May, no one lost their job. But June, July, August, yeah, people are losing their jobs. It's not a disaster. They have money with us. They're financially well off. But, as one guy commented, wow, I'm 60 years old. I've been with the same firm for 35 years, and I was fired in less than 10 minutes. That hurts. That really hurts. Worrying about your family. Can my children get jobs? Think about how many 25-year-olds you know right now that are either living at home and have no jobs, or have jobs that are way below their intelligence and education. They're underemployed. When I was 25, I already owned an apartment, had a management track job at Morgan Stanley, and was thinking about getting married and starting a family. And that opportunity may be unavailable to an entire generation of people that were born 20 to 30 years ago. The big picture, the long-term economics. Will my company fail? How many companies have gone bankrupt in the last 6 months that have been around for 25, 50, or 100 years? Brooks Brothers, for example, they're gone. Social unrest. Will there be riots in my town? Frankly, not that big a deal. But if you watch television, it's going to show you the 2 blocks where the riots are occurring. People's portfolios. Is my portfolio going to be okay? Am I going to be able to retire? I think the people that were hardest hit by this pandemic were the people among our client base that were within 1 to 3 years of retirement. They could see the finish line. They were almost done. And now they're deeply concerned about whether they can retire for good. Good news is they can, but we'll just have to keep working our way through it. National politics. Will my candidate lose? If you're a Trump supporter, Biden is an existential threat. If you're a Biden supporter, Trump is an existential threat. When has that ever been an issue before in national politics? Like when Gore lost to Bush in 2000, it was annoying, but it wasn't emotionally destructive. And I kind of feel like we're going to have a pretty tough stretch between November 3rd and December 14th as the election this will not be decided that first night. December 14th, the election has to be certified for better or for worse, and the electoral votes forwarded for the final count. Geopolitical conflicts, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. We're doing very badly against all those countries right now. Russia is definitely interfering with our election again. Climate change. Why so many natural disasters this year? It's real simple. The planet is a lot hotter now than it was 50 years ago. And we've had some monster hurricanes come through. We're up to, I think, the letter S. So we've had 20 tropical storms or hurricanes come through so far this year. Laura was the most significant one to make landfall. But we've also had unbelievable forest fires out west in Washington State, Oregon, and California. And that's because as the climate changes, it also gets drier, drying out the forests, and they just explode. And then we've even had some crazy sort of hurricane-like winds that were not over the water, they were over the land, and destroyed millions of acres of crops in Idaho and places like that. Finally, trust. Who can I trust? Can I trust anyone at this point? In surveys of measuring trust for government, corporations, religious organizations, universities, all of those have been heading steadily downward since about 1970. And it's gotten to the point where hardly anybody trusts anybody anymore. You cannot have a functioning society, you cannot have a functioning civilization if there's no trust. That's what makes it possible to do anything. So compared to referring back to our 50,000-year-old ancestors, we still have this brain that's coded for fight or flight, fight or flight, fight or flight. But because everything is so gelatinous, amorphous, so intangible, we get overloaded. We don't know what to do, and it manifests itself in the need to take action. But what? We become impatient. We become short-tempered. Oh my God, yes. We feel frustrated and intolerant. I've had some sharp words about politics with longtime friends this last 6 months. It's not been fun. We scan constantly for danger. There's a process called doom scrolling, where you just spend your whole time scrolling through your phone, trying to find some hope that life is going to be okay. And then lastly, we're physically exhausted and have diminished resilience. I really have not had any time off since March 1st, other than I did get married and did take 4 days off for a honeymoon. Other than that, I've just been working 7 days a week for 6 months now, and it's taking its toll. How can we take back control? One of the most important tools that we use at our firm is checklists. We have checklists to bring in a new client. We have a checklist to bring in a new employee. We have a checklist to run our monthly reports. We have a checklist to run our annual compliance review, our annual tax calculations. Everything is all about checklists. And if you go to our website, heronwealth.com, and click on the free investment guides button, you'll find a number of checklists. We've got one for before you get married, one for mid-career, one for right before you retire, and we have a new one, the Financial Uncertainty Preparedness Checklist. It's only 2 pages long. It's about 30 or 40 items on a checklist. Go to our website, download a copy, spend 30 minutes checking down the list. If most of the boxes are checked, you're in good shape. If half the boxes are checked, well, either take action yourself or call us and let us take action with you. We're really good at that. And then finally, to stop doom scrolling, don't rely on Twitter or Facebook for news. 98% of what you see there is bullshit. In fact, there's a big problem right now because on Facebook, people are putting out messages about how looters are spreading fires from Portland, Oregon. And so people in Oregon are refusing to leave their homes because they're afraid of looters. They're gonna die. It's gonna be pretty bad. Do use fact-checking resources. There are plenty of organizations that evaluate almost continuously what people have said and what is true. And they'll evaluate Republicans, they'll evaluate Democrats, and they will tell you on a range of this is true to liar, liar, pants on fire, what the situation is. Even better if you can do your own original sourcing. As a research person, I never rely on second or third hand sourcing. I always check it out myself, ideally from multiple sources. This is what we went to college to learn how to do, how to find truth among a lot of clutter and distraction. Respect experts and expertise. They're not right all the time, but they're far more likely to be right than amateurs. It was kind of comical, or kind of sad, frankly, a few weeks ago. The My Pillow guy, Mike Liddell, was promoting some sort of toxic plant extract as a cure for COVID, because somehow he ended up on the coronavirus task force, and he has neither medical expertise nor any evidence that this plant has any efficacy, but nonetheless he was out promoting it. No, you don't listen to someone like that. You listen to an actual doctor or an actual epidemiologist. That's always a hard word to say. And finally, pay no attention to known liars. We know who those people are. Do not listen to them. And with that, I'm going to jump over to questions and bring Rafi back up online, and we'll do some talking.
All right, David, the first question that came in was, what are interest rates? Where are interest rates headed, and what will it mean for the market?
Yeah, so interest rates are going to be flatline for the next 2 years, from now until the end of 2022. So that's part of the Fed's accommodation to try and keep money flowing into the economy, drop rates as low as possible. The problem is that in the old days we could get reliably 4 or 4.5% or 5% from a bond portfolio. Now we're getting 2% from a bond portfolio. So that detracts from people's retirement income.
Okay. What is your prognosis should Trump win and holds the Senate?
Well, that is a tough question. He was asked in an interview with Sean Hannity a few weeks ago what was the agenda for the term to come, and he had no answer. So we don't even know. If you look at everything that Trump has done in the last 4 years, boils down to appointing a lot of conservative judges, it boils down to removing a lot of environmental regulations, and it's one significant tax cut that didn't benefit most people. I think maybe 5% of people got some benefit, 95% did not. He would love to terminate Obamacare. That seems like a great idea in the midst of a pandemic to take away people's healthcare options. I don't think he has any plan beyond November. If Biden was the president, one thing we can count on for sure is a big tax increase. In essence, Biden would reverse the Trump personal tax reduction and also reverse the corporate tax reduction as well. That's not a problem for most people. If you think back to 2018, I can't find a single person who saw a significant tax cut from 2018. So if you reverse that, you'll probably not see a significant tax increase either. And then what about a split situation where Biden is the president, but McConnell still controls the Senate? Well, then you just have nothing going on. And we already saw that earlier in the last month or so. There's a significant need for more economic stimulus. The Democrats had a package in the House. The Republicans couldn't even agree amongst themselves for a package, let alone a package that could reconcile with the Democratic thing. So nothing happened at all. And now the average American will suffer.
So this just in from David. How much longer do you think the Fed will continue to maintain an accommodative monetary policy?
At least until 2022, because we're in a recession right now, and it's going to be a long, hard slog to get out of recession. You look back to 2008, 2009, it wasn't until about 2011 that the Fed began raising rates. It wasn't until about 2018 that the Fed actually raised rates to a level that I would consider to be normal. And when I say normal, that would be about 4.5%, 5% on the 10-year Treasury. Right now, we're at about 0.5% on the 10-year Treasury. So, long time.
So, speaking of recession, Steve asks, he thinks that the recession that we're in and headed into is going to be even worse in 2008. So, is he right? Is he wrong? Is there anything we can do as individuals and or as the country?
Yeah. So the 2008-2009 recession was a liquidity crisis, and that's actually your worst kind of crisis. The previous example of that was 1929. In 2008, a lot of banks took on a lot of risk, bought a lot of junky securities on margin, and when those securities all went into the toilet, their capital structures collapsed at a crazy rate. We don't have that problem right now. The banks are surprisingly in good shape. I haven't heard any sign of stress among banks. They have taken some significant extra capital reserves because they know that a lot of loans that are currently out there are going to turn bad over the next year or two. I mean, for example, if you're a landlord who's not getting rent, then it's very hard to turn around and pay your mortgage. So that's going to be a rippling effect. But so far, I don't see a liquidity crisis. The Fed was very aggressive early on providing liquidity to the system. That's not a problem. This is the problem. It's going to be a lack of demand recession. So right now we have about 20 million unemployed Americans, and those Americans are in kind of the service fields of hotels and entertainment and food and beverage and restaurants, whatever. And me, for example, when I lived in New York City up until April, I was somebody who went out for meals a lot, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and saw it at the theater, and took my clothes to the dry cleaner or whatever. Well, now I'm living in rural upstate New York, and I'll probably be here, I think, through at least January, and it's a good possibility I'll still be here in September 21. Well, all of the people back in New York City that relied on me to support their families, they're not getting anything right now. And it's just going to be a lack of demand recession where a certain class of people, white collar professionals that have jobs they can do remotely will thrive, and everybody else is going to be facing almost depression-like circumstances 6 months from now, 12 months from now.
My understanding from a friend in the restaurant business is that 40%, or actually in the real estate business, said 40% of restaurants are going out of business. They cannot maintain or sustain.
Yeah, New York City currently allows outdoor seating. Well, that's limited. In a couple of weeks, they're going to allow 25% capacity. There isn't a single restaurant in New York City that can survive at 25% of capacity. Typically in New York, you're elbow to elbow with everybody else next to you. And that's just to cover the rent. That's just to cover the payroll. It's a very tight business. And I happened to be in New York a few weeks ago, just checking on my office. And as I drove down Broadway, 2/3 of the stores that I passed were either boarded up or vacant. And what does that mean for all the people that work in stores and what the people that deliver stuff to stores? How will New York recover from this? It's very hard to see.
Right. Last question from Susan. Tech stocks keep trending higher. Should I just put all my money in those?
Absolutely not. That's the greater fool theory. The idea that I will buy high and sell higher. And we have talked numerous times in the last 6 months about the 10 stocks that are supporting the stock market right now, which is Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Google, Tesla, Johnson & Johnson, United Healthcare. These are the ultra caps. These are the companies with $1 trillion in market capitalization. And I get why Amazon is doing well right now. The whole world is turned to Amazon. I get why Facebook is doing well. It's hoovering up all the advertising. But the valuations on those companies are extreme. And again, what you classically see is this rocket-shaped chart where a company starts out low and then accelerates, and more people jump in, it goes straight up like this, right? Check out the chart of Tesla in the last 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, the last fool gets in, and the next thing that happens is straight down. So that's the ballistic chart. So absolutely positively, the last place I would put money right now is in tech stocks. I'm not even putting money in stocks in general right now. Money's coming in, and we are just sitting and waiting. Either we'll take action in January if everything kind of hangs together, or if we get a 20% pullback in stocks, which is not out of the question, or a 10% pullback, but a 20% pullback is not out of the question, we would take action at that point. And let me just make one last point. For the clients that are already invested, we've had some very important conversations about which of this money do you need in the next 12 months? Which of this money do you need in the next 5 years? Whatever's left over, we'll invest in stocks for your retirement or some other thing. But the money you need right now, we're leaving in cash right now.
Last month, we touched upon the conversation about buying gold and silver. Any changes in the last month regarding that?
No, gold is a very psychology-driven investment. People buy it when they're afraid. And the theory is that it will be a store of value when everything else goes to hell. And I always tell people, yeah, you can take your gold brick and bash in your neighbor's head and steal their gold when everything else goes to hell. Other than that, have it for jewelry. Don't have it for an investment.
So this is a good segue to end our session today. This came in from Julie, which was very nice. David, you said it's hard to know whom to trust, and we trust you, and you've never let us down, and I mean it. So that was very nice. Thank you, Julie. So next month, the second Sunday of the month is October 11th. Right. Is that the next webinar?
I'll tell you, we'll be doing a deep dive on what's going to happen Election Day. We'll know, we'll have only 3 weeks to go to the election. We'll have lots of polls, lots of information from all of the political prognosticators. And even then, it's going to be a nail-biting stretch through next year's inauguration.
So I'd like to think that everyone on this call already knows how to get in touch with you, but for the recording, David, please tell us the Heron website and what is the best way to get in touch with you to talk about this month's
Go
webinar.
to Heron, Heron, wealth.com. There is, of course, our phone number. There is a click to schedule an appointment number. My email address is David Edwards at Heron, Heron, wealth.com. And my direct line is 917-705-3893.
Thank you once again, David Edwards, President of Heron Wealth. We thank you for your knowledge and for your wisdom and look forward to hearing from you next month.
Thank you, Rafi. Good night.